pencil sailed through the air in slow motion, spinning end over end before clattering onto the desk with a sound that made everyone in the classroom freeze. But this time, it wasn't Marcus Kane throwing it. It was being thrown at him. Marcus looked up from his notebook to see Jake Morrison standing over his desk, that same aggressive posture, that same intimidating lean that Marcus himself had perfected years ago. The irony wasn't lost on him. 3 months ago, he would have stood up and made Jake regret even breathing in his direction. 3 months ago, Marcus Kane would have owned this moment, turned it into a demonstration of power that left Jake humiliated and everyone else reminded of who ruled Westbridge Academy. But 3 months ago, Marcus Kane had been someone else entirely. "Pick it up," Jake said. His voice carried that familiar edge of manufactured authority, the sound of someone trying to seem more powerful than they felt inside. Marcus recognized it because he'd spent 4 years speaking exactly like that. The classroom held its breath, 28 students watching, waiting, remembering the last time these two had faced off. That had been 2 weeks after Zara arrived, when Jake and his friends had cornered her at her locker, when Marcus had stepped in and threatened them within an inch of their social lives. That confrontation had been the beginning of everything changing. Now, apparently, Jake wanted a rematch. Marcus looked at the pencil on his desk, looked at Jake's face, red with barely contained aggression, looked around the classroom at all the familiar faces, some hopeful, some worried, some gleeful at the prospect of drama. Then he picked up the pencil, examined it briefly, and held it out to Jake with a calm smile. "You dropped this?" Marcus said pleasantly. "You should be more careful. Westbridge has a strict policy about littering." Jake's face went from red to purple. "You think you're funny? You think just because you're dating that girl you can talk to me however you want?" "I'm not talking to you any particular way," Marcus replied, still holding out the pencil. "I'm just returning your property. Unless you don't want it, in which case, I'm happy to throw it away for you." Someone in the back of the class snorted with laughter. Jake's jaw clenched so hard Marcus heard his teeth grinding together. This was the moment where violence usually erupted. This was the powder keg waiting for a spark. "You've changed," Jake said, and it sounded like an accusation. "You used to be someone. Now you're just her little puppy dog, following her around, acting all peaceful and enlightened. It's pathetic." Marcus set the pencil down on his desk and looked Jake directly in the eyes. "You're right. I have changed. And if you think that makes me weak, you're welcome to test that theory. But I should warn you, Jake, the old Marcus would have hit you by now. The new Marcus understands that violence is what people do when they've run out of intelligent options. So the real question is, are you out of intelligent options already? Because class hasn't even started yet." The classroom erupted in barely suppressed laughter. Even Mrs. Peterson, who had just walked in carrying a stack of papers, was fighting a smile. Jake looked around, realized he'd lost the audience, and stormed back to his seat, muttering curses under his breath. Mrs. Peterson set her papers down and surveyed the room with knowing eyes. "I see we're all awake this morning. Excellent. That means you're ready for your next assignment. Partner projects on Shakespeare's sonnets. You'll analyze themes of love, power, and transformation, and before anyone asks, yes, you may choose your own partners." The room immediately dissolved into movement as students turned to their friends, calling out names, forming alliances. Marcus didn't move. He didn't need to. Zara's desk was already next to his, had been for 3 months now, ever since they'd officially become partners in every sense of the word. "Looks like you're stuck with me again," Zara said, her voice warm with affection and amusement. She'd watched the entire interaction with Jake, hadn't intervened, had trusted Marcus to handle it himself. That trust meant everything. "Worst possible outcome," Marcus replied with mock seriousness. "Being forced to spend time with my brilliant, beautiful girlfriend who makes me a better person. However, will I survive?" Zara laughed, that genuine, unguarded laugh that made Marcus's chest feel too small for his heart. "You're getting better at this whole romantic thing. 3 months ago, you would have just grunted and flexed your muscles." 3 months ago, I didn't know romance existed outside of manipulation tactics, Marcus admitted. "You've ruined me, Zara Thompson. Completely ruined me for my old life." "Good," Zara said, reaching over to squeeze his hand. "That was the plan all along. Seduce you with honesty and genuine connection. Works every time." They spent the rest of class planning their sonnet analysis, but Marcus's mind kept drifting to how different everything felt now. The classroom that used to feel like a stage where he performed power now felt like just a room full of people learning together. The students who used to watch his every move now barely noticed him unless he was actually contributing something meaningful. And Zara, who had walked into his life like a hurricane disguised as a girl, sat beside him, making literary analysis feel like the most important thing in the world. When the bell rang, they packed up their things and walked out into the hallway hand in hand. This small gesture, this simple act of holding hands, would have been unthinkable 3 months ago. Marcus Kane didn't hold hands. Marcus Kane didn't do public displays of affection unless they served a strategic purpose. But now, feeling Zara's fingers intertwined with his felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Marcus, Zara, wait up!" Tyler Brooks jogged toward them, slightly out of breath. Tyler had been Marcus's friend since middle school, one of the few people from his old life who had survived the transition into his new one. "We're all meeting at the oak tree for lunch. Sarah's bringing homemade spring rolls, and Thomas is going to show us this new coding project he's working on. You guys coming?" The oak tree. Their oak tree. What had started as Marcus and Zara's private sanctuary had grown into something neither of them had planned but both of them treasured. 23 students now gathered there regularly. Outcasts and misfits and people who were tired of performing for an audience that didn't actually care about them. They called themselves nothing because labels felt too restrictive, too much like the old social hierarchy they were trying to escape. They were just people being people, and somehow that was enough. "Wouldn't miss it," Marcus said. "I'm bringing the terrible cafeteria pizza because I still can't cook anything more complicated than pasta." "Hey, your pasta is getting better," Zara defended. "Last week's carbonara only had a few crunchy bits." "Those were supposed to be crunchy," Marcus protested. "They were, artisanal texture elements." Tyler laughed. "Dude, just admit you burned the bacon. We've all been there." They walked through the hallways together, and Marcus noticed something he'd been seeing more often lately. Students stepping aside, not out of fear, but out of courtesy. People saying hello not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The social ecosystem of Westbridge Academy was shifting in subtle ways. Power was redistributing itself. The old hierarchies were cracking. But not everyone was happy about it. Amanda Pierce stood by her locker with her usual entourage of perfectly styled blonde friends. She watched Marcus and Zara pass with eyes that promised future trouble. Amanda had been trying to date Marcus since sophomore year, had built her entire social strategy around eventually becoming his girlfriend, and therefore ascending to the very top of Westbridge's social pyramid. Zara's arrival had demolished those plans completely, and Amanda was not the forgiving type. "Marcus," Amanda called out, her voice saccharine sweet and laced with poison. "Can I talk to you for a second? Alone?" Marcus felt Zara's hand tighten in his. He squeezed back reassuringly. "Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of Zara and Tyler." Amanda's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. "Fine. I just wanted to let you know that my parents are hosting a charity gala next month. It's a big deal, very exclusive. All the important families in the area. Your parents will be there, obviously. I wanted to extend a personal invitation to you." The mention of his parents made Marcus's stomach clench. Richard and Catherine Kane. His father, the billionaire CEO who measured worth in zeros and commas. His mother, the socialite who cared more about appearances than actual human connection. He hadn't seen them in 2 months. They were always traveling, always at some conference or business meeting or charity event that mattered more than being home with their only son. "Thanks for the invitation," Marcus said carefully, "but I'll have to check my schedule." "Of course," Amanda purred. "And Zara, you're welcome to come too. I'm sure you'd love to see how the other half lives. We'll even provide appropriate attire if you need it. I know not everyone has access to formal wear." The insult was delicate, wrapped in false concern, designed to humiliate without being overtly cruel. It was classic Amanda, the kind of social maneuvering that Marcus himself had once excelled at. Now it just made him tired. Zara, however, handled it with her usual grace. "That's very thoughtful of you, Amanda, but I have several appropriate formal options already. My mother believes in investing in quality pieces that last, rather than buying trendy items that will be obsolete next season. It's more economical and environmentally conscious." Amanda's smile finally cracked. She'd tried to shame Zara for being poor and had instead been lectured on fiscal responsibility and environmental ethics. The few students within earshot were struggling not to laugh. "Well," Amanda said, recovering quickly, "I'll make sure you both receive official invitations. It'll be good for you to reconnect with your parents, Marcus. I know they've been worried about you lately. My mother talks to your mother regularly, and apparently there's been some concern about the company you've been keeping." There it was, the real attack, not aimed at Zara directly, but at Marcus through Zara. Implying that his parents disapproved, that his relationship was causing family problems, that he was disappointing the people who mattered most. 3 months ago, that would have worked. 3 months ago, his parents' approval was everything. But 3 months ago, Marcus didn't know what actual love felt like. "Tell your mother to tell my mother that if she wants to know what's going on in my life, she can call me herself instead of gossiping with her friends," Marcus said. His voice was pleasant, but there was steel underneath. "Now if you'll excuse us, we have lunch plans." They walked away before Amanda could respond. Tyler was grinning. That was savage. The old Marcus would have just insulted her and walked away. The new Marcus insults her, sets boundaries, and walks away. I like the upgrade. But Zara was quiet. Too quiet. Marcus knew that look. She was thinking, processing, worrying about something. What's wrong? He asked as they pushed through the doors that led to the courtyard where their oak tree waited. Your parents, Zara said simply. Amanda said they've been talking about you, about us. That's not good, Marcus. My parents are always somewhere between disinterested and disapproving, Marcus said, trying to sound casual. It's their default state. I stopped trying to please them years ago. Did you, though? Zara asked, stopping under the oak tree's spreading branches. The rest of their friends hadn't arrived yet. They had a moment of privacy. Or did you just start trying to please them in a different way? By being powerful, by being feared, by building exactly the kind of reputation they'd approve of even if they weren't around to see it? Marcus wanted to argue, but the words died in his throat. Because she was right. Of course she was right. Zara had this infuriating ability to see straight through him, to find the truths he buried under layers of defense mechanisms and carefully constructed personas. Maybe, he admitted, but that's over now. I'm not that person anymore. I'm not trying to impress anyone except myself and you. I know, Zara said softly. She reached up and touched his face, her palm warm against his cheek. But Marcus, what happens when your parents actually come home? What happens when they see how much you've changed? When they realize their son isn't the Marcus Kane they left behind? I don't know, Marcus said honestly. But we'll figure it out together, right? Right, Zara agreed. But her eyes were worried, and Marcus felt a cold finger of premonition trace down his spine. Before he could dwell on it, their friends started arriving. Sarah with her spring rolls, Thomas with his laptop to show off his coding project, Maya with a new poem she'd written, Tyler with his terrible jokes that somehow always made everyone laugh anyway. More students filtered in, 23 in total, all of them settling into the comfortable rhythm they'd established over the past months. This was Marcus's new kingdom, not built on fear or manipulation, but on genuine connection, not ruled from a throne but shared under the branches of an oak tree. And as he sat there with Zara's head on his shoulder, listening to his friends talk and laugh and just exist without performance or pretense, Marcus thought that maybe, just maybe, he'd finally figured out what power actually meant. He had no idea that in less than 48 hours, everything would fall apart. His phone buzzed during study hall the next afternoon. Marcus glanced at the screen and felt his blood freeze. A text from his mother. Catherine Kane never texted. She had assistants for that. She communicated through carefully scheduled calls and even more carefully worded emails. A direct text meant something was wrong. The message was brief, clinical, exactly like his mother. Your father and I will be home this weekend. We need to talk. Marcus read it 3 times, each word feeling heavier than the last. We need to talk. 4 words that had never, in the entire history of parent-child relationships, preceded good news. 4 words that felt like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. What is it? Zara whispered beside him. They were supposed to be working on their sonnet analysis, but Marcus's hands had gone numb around his phone. My parents, he managed. They're coming home this weekend. They want to talk. Zara's face shifted through several expressions in rapid succession. Concern, worry, determination, and finally a forced brightness that didn't quite reach her eyes. Okay. That's okay. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe they just want to check in, see how you're doing. My parents don't check in, Marcus said flatly. They evaluate, they assess, they make strategic decisions about resource allocation. And right now, I'm a resource that's not performing according to expectations. You don't know that, Zara insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. She'd heard enough stories about Richard and Catherine Kane to know that parental warmth was not their defining characteristic. The rest of study hall passed in a blur. Marcus tried to focus on Shakespeare's sonnets, on the way the poet transformed personal pain into universal truth, but his mind kept circling back to his parents. What did they want? What had they heard? And more importantly, what were they planning to do about it? By the time school ended, Marcus had worked himself into a state of quiet panic. He drove Zara home in silence, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. Marcus, stop, Zara said as he pulled up to her house. The small, well-maintained home with wind chimes on the porch and warmth radiating from every window. Everything his own massive empty house wasn't. You're spiraling. Whatever happens this weekend, we'll handle it together, okay? Okay, Marcus echoed, but he didn't believe it. Some things couldn't be handled together. Some things he'd have to face alone. Zara leaned over and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promises neither of them could guarantee they'd be able to keep. Call me after you talk to them, no matter what time it is. Promise? Promise, Marcus said. He watched her walk to her front door, watched her mother open it and pull her into a hug, watched the kind of casual affection that had never existed in his own home. Then he drove back to his house, the mansion on the hill that felt more like a museum than a place where people actually lived. The weekend arrived with the weight of an execution date. Marcus spent Saturday morning cleaning his room, doing homework, anything to keep his hands busy and his mind occupied. His parents' flight was supposed to land at 10 a.m. They'd be home by noon. At 11:57, Marcus heard the garage door open. His heart rate spiked. He stood in the kitchen, trying to look casual, trying to be the son they expected while also being the person he'd become. The two identities felt incompatible, like trying to wear a suit that no longer fit. His father walked in first. Richard Kane was tall, imposing, with silver hair and a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Everything about him screamed power and control. He looked at Marcus the way a CEO might evaluate a disappointing quarterly report. His mother followed, elegant and perfectly composed as always. Catherine Kane wore designer clothes like armor, her makeup flawless, her hair styled with precision. She smiled when she saw Marcus, but it was her professional smile, the one she used at charity galas and business dinners, not a mother's smile. She'd never quite mastered those. "Marcus," his father said, setting his briefcase on the kitchen island. "You look different." It wasn't a compliment, it was an observation, clinical and assessing. "I've been working out more," Marcus offered, which was technically true. Tyler had convinced him to join the school's informal basketball games, and the physical activity helped clear his head. "That's not what I meant," his father replied. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then set it on the counter facing Marcus. On the screen was a photo. Marcus and Zara under the oak tree, her head on his shoulder, both of them smiling. Someone had taken it without their knowledge, and apparently sent it to his father. "Who is she?" his mother asked. Her voice was carefully neutral, but Marcus heard the judgment underneath. "Her name is Zara Thompson," Marcus said. "She's my girlfriend." The word felt powerful in his mouth. Girlfriend. Not a strategic alliance, not a social climbing tool, but an actual relationship built on genuine connection. He waited for his parents to understand that significance, but of course, they didn't. "Thompson," his father repeated, like he was searching a database. "I don't know that family. What does her father do?" "He's not around," Marcus said. "Her mother is a nurse. She works at County General." The silence that followed was deafening. His parents exchanged a look, one of those wordless conversations that married couples developed over decades. Marcus had seen that look before. It never preceded good news. "I see," his mother said finally. "And how long has this been going on?" 3 months, Marcus answered. He wanted to add that they were the best 3 months of his life, that Zara had made him see himself clearly for the first time, that she taught him the difference between power and control, but he knew his parents wouldn't understand. They'd never understood anything that couldn't be measured in profit margins or social capital. 3 months, his father echoed. "And in those 3 months, you've managed to destroy your social position at Westbridge Academy. We've received calls from the Pierces, the Brooks, the Chens. They're all very concerned about your recent behavior." "Concerned," Marcus repeated. "Or upset that I'm not playing their games anymore?" "Don't be flippant," his mother snapped. The professional smile vanished, replaced by genuine irritation. "Your father and I have spent years building connections in this community. Your behavior reflects on us, Marcus. Your social position matters." "Why?" Marcus asked. The question surprised even him. "Why does it matter who I date or who I'm friends with? Why do you care more about what the Pierces think than about whether I'm actually happy?" "Happiness is a luxury," his father said flatly. "Success is a necessity, and you're confusing the two. This girl, this nurse's daughter, she's a distraction from your real future." "She has a name," Marcus said. His voice was rising, anger bubbling up from somewhere deep. "Her name is Zara, and she's not a distraction. She's the first real thing I've ever had in my life." "Real," his mother scoffed. "Marcus, you're 17 years old. You think this is real? This is a teenage infatuation that will be over in 6 months. Meanwhile, you're damaging relationships that could last a lifetime. The connections you make at Westbridge matter. The Brooks family owns half the commercial real estate in this county. The Pierce family has connections to 3 different senators. These are people who can help you in the future." "I don't want their help," Marcus said. "I don't want to spend my life using people as stepping stones to success. I want to actually care about the people around me. I want to be someone who matters because of who I am, not who I know or how much money my family has." His father laughed. Actually laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound that made Marcus's skin crawl. "That's naive, son. The world doesn't work that way. Power isn't about being liked. It's about being necessary. It's about creating situations where people need you more than you need them, and right now, you're making yourself expendable." "Then maybe I want to be expendable?" Marcus shot back. Maybe I'm tired of being a chess piece in your social strategy. Maybe I want to just be Marcus for once. Not Marcus Kane, heir to the Kane family legacy." The kitchen went silent. His parents stared at him like he'd spoken in a foreign language they didn't recognize. And maybe he had. Maybe the language of genuine emotion and honest connection was foreign to them. His mother recovered first. She always did. "Marcus, sit down. We need to have a serious conversation." Something in her tone made Marcus's stomach drop, but he sat. His father remained standing, looming over the table like a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. "Your mother and I have been discussing your situation," his father began. "And we've come to a decision. You have two choices. Choice 1. You end this relationship with the Thompson girl immediately. You return to your proper social circle. You maintain the Kane family standards and prepare yourself for the future we've planned for you. If you choose this path, everything continues as normal. Your college fund remains intact. Your trust fund remains intact. You'll have every opportunity we've worked to provide." Marcus felt ice spreading through his veins. "And choice 2? Choice 2, his father continued, his voice absolutely emotionless, is that you continue down this current path. You maintain this inappropriate relationship. You continue associating with students who don't meet our family standards, and in that case, your mother and I will cut you off completely. No college fund, no trust fund, no support of any kind. You'll be entirely on your own." The words landed like physical blows. Marcus had known his parents were cold, had known they valued image over substance, but this was something else entirely. This was weaponized love, or the absence of it. This was parenting as negotiation, affection as transaction. "You can't be serious," Marcus said, but he could see in their faces that they were completely serious. "We're giving you a choice," his mother said. "That's more than many parents would do. We could simply make the decision for you, but we're respecting your autonomy. Choose wisely, Marcus. Choose your future." "You're asking me to choose between the first person who's ever actually seen me and my entire financial security," Marcus said. His voice was shaking now, hovering somewhere between rage and heartbreak. "You're asking me to put a price tag on love." "We're asking you to be practical," his father corrected. "Love is wonderful in theory, Marcus, but it doesn't pay for college. It doesn't open doors. It doesn't secure your future. This girl will be gone in 6 months. Your education, your career, your real life, those are permanent. Choose accordingly." Marcus stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "I need time to think." "You have until Monday morning," his father said. "We'll be leaving for Singapore tomorrow evening. When we return in 2 weeks, we expect your answer. Choose the girl, and we'll begin the process of removing you from all family financial accounts. Choose your future, and this unfortunate phase will be forgotten." Marcus walked out of the kitchen without another word. He made it to his room, closed the door, and stood there shaking. His whole body felt like it was vibrating at a frequency only he could perceive. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. But it was real. His parents had just given him an ultimatum. Zara or everything else. Love or security. His heart or his future. And he had no idea what to do. His phone buzzed. A text from Zara. How did it go? Marcus stared at the message for a long time. How did he even begin to explain this? How did he tell the girl he loved that his parents had turned her into a test, a choice, a price tag? He called instead of texting. She answered on the first ring. "Marcus? What happened? You sound terrible." And then, sitting on the floor of his bedroom in a house that had never felt like home, Marcus told her everything. Every word his parents had said, every condition they'd laid out, every impossible choice they'd forced him to make. When he finished, Zara was quiet for so long, Marcus thought the call had dropped. "Zara, are you there?" "I'm here," she said. Her voice sounded strange, controlled in a way that made Marcus nervous. "Marcus, I need to say something, and I need you to really hear me, okay?" "Okay," Marcus said, but dread was already pooling in his stomach. "Your parents are wrong about a lot of things," Zara began. "They're wrong about what matters. They're wrong about how to measure success. They're wrong about love being temporary and money being permanent. But Marcus, they're not wrong about your future mattering. They're not wrong that your education is important." "What are you saying?" Marcus asked, but he already knew. He could hear it in her voice. "I'm saying that I can't let you throw away your entire future for me," Zara said. Tears were in her voice now, breaking through the control. "I can't be the reason you lose everything, Marcus. I can't be that person." "You're not that person," Marcus protested. "My parents are doing this, not you. They're the ones making this impossible choice." "But it's still a choice you have to make," Zara said. "And I'm telling you right now, as someone who loves you, as someone who wants what's best for you, choose your future, Marcus. Choose college. Choose security. Choose everything your parents are offering." "No," Marcus said. The word came out fierce. desperate. No, Zara, don't do this. Don't make this decision for me. I'm not making it for you, Zara said. I'm making it easier. Marcus, I've watched my mother work herself to exhaustion trying to give me and Isaiah opportunities. I've seen what it's like to not have resources, to struggle for every single thing. Your parents are offering you a golden ticket, and they're asking you to give up a 3-month relationship for it. That's not even a real choice. It is to me, Marcus said. Tears were streaming down his face now. Zara, you're not just a 3-month relationship. You're the person who taught me how to be real. How to be myself. How to actually care about people instead of just using them. You're everything. And I'll still be everything, Zara said softly. Just not your girlfriend. Marcus, we're 17. We have our whole lives ahead of us. Maybe we'll find our way back to each other someday. But right now, you need to choose your education. You need to choose your future. So you're breaking up with me, Marcus said. The words felt like swallowing glass. I'm setting you free, Zara corrected. I'm refusing to be the reason you destroy your life. And Marcus, if you really love me, you'll understand why I'm doing this. That's not fair, Marcus said. His voice broke completely. You don't get to love me and leave me in the same breath. You don't get to make this decision and call it protection. Watch me, Zara said, and then softer. I love you, Marcus Kane. I love you enough to let you go. I love you enough to make the hard choice when you can't. And someday, when you're successful and happy and living the life you're supposed to live, you'll understand. Zara, please. Goodbye, Marcus, she said, and then the line went dead. Marcus sat there holding his phone, staring at the screen, waiting for it to ring again, for Zara to call back and say she'd made a mistake, that they could fight this together, that love was worth more than money or security or his parents' approval. But the phone stayed silent. And Marcus Kane, who had spent 3 months learning how to be real, how to be vulnerable, how to actually feel things instead of just performing them, discovered what heartbreak actually felt like. It felt like dying while still being forced to breathe. The weekend passed like a fever dream. Marcus spent Saturday night staring at his ceiling, his phone clutched in his hand, drafting and deleting text messages to Zara that he never sent. Each message felt wrong, inadequate, like trying to capture an ocean in a teaspoon. I love you felt too small. Please don't do this. Felt too desperate. You're wrong felt too aggressive. So he said nothing, and the silence between them grew heavier with each passing hour. Sunday morning arrived gray and cold. Marcus dragged himself out of bed and found his parents in the dining room having breakfast, like they hadn't just detonated his entire life the day before. His father was reading the Wall Street Journal on his tablet. His mother was checking her phone, probably coordinating some charity event or business meeting. Neither of them looked up when Marcus entered. He poured himself coffee and sat down, the chair scraping against the floor in the oppressive quiet. Finally, his mother glanced at him. You look terrible, she observed clinically. Didn't sleep? Not really, Marcus said. His voice sounded hollow, scraped raw from crying he'd tried to do silently into his pillow at 3 a.m. I assume you've made your decision, his father said, still not looking up from his tablet. Marcus thought about lying. Thought about telling them he'd chosen their way, chosen money and security, and the golden path they'd laid out for him. But he'd spent 3 months learning how to be honest. And that lesson was apparently burned too deep to ignore now. No, Marcus said. I haven't decided anything, and I don't think I should have to. This whole situation is insane. You're my parents. You're supposed to support me, not blackmail me into living the life you want. His father finally looked up, his expression cool and assessing. We are supporting you, Marcus. We're supporting your future. We're protecting you from making a catastrophic mistake at 17 that will impact the rest of your life. That's what parents do. No, Marcus said, anger finally breaking through the numbness. That's what dictators do. That's what people do when they care more about control than actual love. You're not protecting me. You're trying to own me. His mother's lips tightened into that thin line that meant she was losing patience. You're being dramatic. We've given you an extremely generous offer. Most parents wouldn't give their child any choice at all. We could simply cut you off right now for your disrespectful behavior. Then do it, Marcus said. The words surprised him as much as they surprised his parents. If you're going to punish me for being happy, for finding someone who actually cares about me as a person instead of as a social asset, then just do it. Stop holding it over my head like a sword. His father set down his tablet with deliberate care. You think we're bluffing? I think you're bullies, Marcus said. Sophisticated, wealthy bullies, but bullies all the same, and I spent 4 years being exactly like you. I know every trick in the book because I learned them from watching you. The threats, the manipulation, the way you make people feel like they're nothing without your approval. I did that to everyone at Westbridge until Zara showed me there was another way to live. "And where's this Zara now?" his mother asked, her voice sharp as a scalpel. "Why isn't she here fighting for this relationship if it matters so much?" The question hit Marcus like a punch to the solar plexus. Because Zara wasn't here, Zara had already made the decision for both of them, had already chosen his future over their present. And his parents knew it. Of course they knew it. They probably knew everything that had happened, had probably orchestrated this whole situation to unfold exactly this way. "She broke up with me," Marcus admitted. The words tasted like ash. "She said she couldn't let me throw away my future for her." His mother actually smiled, a small, satisfied smile that made Marcus want to throw his coffee cup against the wall. "Then she's smarter than we gave her credit for. She understands reality in a way you apparently still don't. Take the lesson, Marcus. Choose wisely." They left for the airport that evening, off to Singapore for 2 weeks of business meetings and networking events, and all the things that mattered more to them than their only son. His father shook his hand at the door like they were business associates, concluding a negotiation. His mother kissed the air beside his cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "We'll expect your decision when we return," his father said. "Make the right choice." And then they were gone, and Marcus was alone in a house that had never felt emptier. Monday morning arrived with the weight of an anvil. Marcus considered not going to school. Considered calling in sick, hiding in his room, avoiding the inevitable moment when he'd have to see Zara and pretend his heart wasn't shattered into a million pieces. But hiding wasn't who he was anymore. Zara had taught him that too. So he got dressed, forced down some breakfast he couldn't taste, and drove to Westbridge Academy. The parking lot felt like walking into enemy territory. Students were everywhere, clustered in their usual groups, laughing and talking and living their lives like Marcus's world hadn't just imploded. He saw Tyler by his car and tried to walk past quickly, but Tyler called out to him. "Marcus, dude, wait up!" Tyler jogged over, his usual cheerful expression fading when he got close enough to see Marcus's face. "Whoa, you look like death. What happened?" "Nothing," Marcus said automatically. Then, because honesty was apparently a habit, he couldn't break even when it hurt. "Everything. My parents happened. They gave me an ultimatum. Zara broke up with me, and I have no idea what I'm doing anymore." Tyler's eyes widened. "Wait, what? Back up. Zara broke up with you? When?" "Saturday night," Marcus said. "After I told her my parents threatened to cut me off if I didn't end things with her. She made the decision for me. Said she couldn't let me throw away my future." "That's..." Tyler started then stopped, clearly struggling to find the right words. "That's actually kind of noble. In a completely devastating way. Man, I'm sorry." "Yeah," Marcus said. "Me too." They stood there in awkward silence for a moment, and Marcus realized he had no idea how to do this. How to go to class and pretend to care about homework and tests and all the mundane activities of normal life when his entire world had shifted off its axis. How to see Zara in the hallways, in their shared classes, at the oak tree where they'd built something beautiful together, and act like his heart wasn't actively bleeding out. "You want to skip?" Tyler offered. "We could go get breakfast somewhere. Talk, or not talk, just not be here." Marcus was tempted. God, he was tempted. But he shook his head. "No, I can't run away from this. I have to face it." "Facing it is overrated," Tyler said, but he clapped Marcus on the shoulder supportively. "But if that's what you're doing, I've got your back, whatever you need." The first bell rang, signaling 5 minutes until classes started. Marcus took a deep breath and headed toward the building. Students parted around him like they used to in the old days, but this time it wasn't out of fear. It was something else, something that looked uncomfortably like pity. Word had spread. Of course, word had spread. Westbridge Academy was a small ecosystem where secrets had the half-life of fruit flies. Everyone knew that Marcus Kane and Zara Thompson had broken up. Everyone was watching to see what would happen next. Marcus made it to his locker without incident, grabbed his books for first period, and headed to English class, Mrs. Peterson's room. The room where he and Zara had been partners for the past 3 months. The room where they'd analyzed Shakespeare and discussed themes of love and transformation and all the beautiful irony that now felt like the universe laughing at him. Zara was already there, sitting in her usual seat by the window. She looked up when Marcus walked in, and for a moment their eyes met. Marcus saw his own pain reflected back at him in her expression. Saw the redness around her eyes that meant she'd been crying too. Saw the way her jaw was set with determination even as her hands trembled slightly around her pen. She'd cried. That mattered somehow. It meant this wasn't easy for her either, that she wasn't some cold, calculating person who could just walk away without feeling the devastation. She was hurting too. But knowing that didn't make it better. If anything, it made it worse. Because they were both hurting, both miserable, and they were choosing to stay that way instead of fighting for what they had. Marcus walked past her to his old seat in the back corner, the seat he'd occupied before Zara, Before transformation, before he learned that vulnerability was strength and connection was power. Sitting there felt like regression, like admitting defeat, but sitting next to Zara felt impossible. The class filled up around them. Students whispered and stared, their eyes darting between Marcus and Zara, like they were watching a tragedy unfold in real time. Mrs. Peterson walked in, took one look at the new seating arrangement, and her face fell. "Marcus," she said carefully, "don't you want to sit with your partner? You and Zara have that sonnet project to work on." "We're not partners anymore," Marcus said. His voice came out flat, emotionless. The old Marcus voice he'd worked so hard to unlearn. "We're done partnering." The classroom went completely silent. Even the students who'd been whispering stopped. Everyone stared. Mrs. Peterson looked between Marcus and Zara with confusion and concern, but she didn't push. Teachers at Westbridge had learned when to let things lie. Class proceeded in a fog. Mrs. Peterson lectured about Shakespeare's sonnets, about how the poet transformed personal pain into universal art, about how heartbreak could be beautiful if you channeled it correctly. Marcus heard maybe one word in 5. The rest was just noise washing over him while he tried to figure out how to survive the next hour, the next day, the next however long until this stopped feeling like dying. When the bell finally rang, Marcus was the first one out the door. He needed air, space, distance from Zara, and her familiar perfume and the empty seat between them that felt like a chasm. He made it halfway down the hallway before someone grabbed his arm. He spun around, ready to snap at whoever it was, and found himself face to face with Amanda Pierce. Well, Amanda said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I heard about your little breakup. Such a shame. You two seemed so happy together." She didn't mean it. Every word was calculated mockery, designed to make him feel worse. The old Marcus would have destroyed her for it. Would have said something cutting and cruel that left her humiliated in front of everyone watching. But the new Marcus, the one Zara had helped create, just felt tired. "What do you want, Amanda?" he asked. "I want to help," Amanda said, smiling that predatory smile that promised anything but help. "I know you must be going through a hard time. Losing your first real girlfriend, disappointing your parents, watching your whole social transformation fall apart. That's a lot for one person to handle, but you don't have to handle it alone. Your real friends are still here. We're still here." She gestured to the group behind her. Her usual entourage of perfectly styled friends who'd spent years in Marcus's orbit, hoping for scraps of his attention. They were all watching him with expressions that ranged from genuine concern to barely concealed glee. "I'm fine," Marcus said. "I don't need help." "Of course you don't," Amanda agreed. "You're Marcus Kane. You're always fine. But just in case you change your mind, just in case you realize that maybe your parents were right and that whole phase with the Thompson girl was just a mistake, we'll be at our usual table at lunch. Your throne is still empty. It's been waiting for you." She walked away before Marcus could respond, her friends trailing behind her like a comet's tail. And Marcus stood there in the hallway, feeling something crack open inside his chest. Because Amanda was offering him exactly what his parents wanted. A return to the old social order, a chance to reclaim his throne, his power, his position as the king of Westbridge Academy. All he had to do was admit that the past 3 months had been a mistake. All he had to do was go back to being the person he hated. The morning crawled by in a blur of classes Marcus couldn't focus on and conversations he couldn't follow. By the time lunch arrived, he was running on autopilot, his body moving through familiar motions while his mind spun in circles, trying to solve an equation with no solution. He grabbed a tray from the cafeteria line and stood at the entrance, looking out at the social landscape of Westbridge Academy. To his left, Amanda's table, the throne, as people still called it. The center of power, the heart of the old hierarchy. Amanda sat there now with her friends, and she caught his eye and smiled, gesturing to the empty seat beside her. An invitation, an offer to come home. To his right, the doors that led to the courtyard, to the oak tree, where 23 students were probably gathering right now. Sarah with her spring rolls, Thomas with his coding project, Maya with her poetry, Tyler with his terrible jokes, and Zara. Zara would be there too, sitting under the branches where they'd spent 3 months building something beautiful. Marcus stood frozen between two futures. 2 versions of himself. 2 completely different lives. Behind him, someone cleared their throat. Marcus turned to find Jake Morrison standing there with his usual aggressive posture, but something in his expression was different, uncertain maybe. Almost vulnerable. "I'm not here to start anything," Jake said quickly, holding up his hands. "I just wanted to say that what your parents are doing sucks. My dad tried something similar last year when he didn't like the girl I was dating, threatened to cut me off, said she wasn't good enough for the Morrison name. I ended up breaking up with her because I was scared, and I regretted it every single day since." Marcus stared at him. Jake Morrison, the football player who'd tried to intimidate Zara, who'd shoved Marcus in the hallway 2 weeks ago, was offering advice. The world had officially stopped making sense. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. "Because watching you and Zara together changed something at this school," Jake said. He looked uncomfortable, like vulnerability was a language he barely spoke. "You made it okay to be real instead of just being powerful. And I don't want to see you throw that away because your parents are assholes. That's all." He walked away before Marcus could respond, heading toward the football team's table. Marcus watched him go, then looked back at his 2 choices: left or right, past or future, fear or courage. He took a step toward the courtyard doors, then stopped, turned left, and walked toward Amanda's table. The cafeteria seemed to hold its collective breath as Marcus crossed the space between the entrance and Amanda's table. Every conversation dimmed. Every eye tracked his movement. This was the moment they'd all been waiting for. The inevitable collapse of Marcus Kane's brief experiment with humanity, the return of the king to his throne. Amanda's smile widened as he approached, victorious and sharp. She started to gesture to the empty seat beside her, the one that had been Marcus's for years, the center of power at Westbridge Academy. Marcus walked right past it. He kept walking, past Amanda's shocked face, past her friend's confused expressions, past the center table, and the power it represented. He walked straight through the cafeteria and out the doors that led to the courtyard, his tray still balanced in his hands, his heart hammering against his ribs. Behind him, he heard the cafeteria explode into noise, whispers and gasps, and someone's startled laughter. He didn't turn around. He couldn't. Because if he stopped moving, if he gave himself time to think about what he'd just done, he might lose his nerve entirely. The courtyard was quieter, peaceful in a way the cafeteria never was. The oak tree stood in the center like it always did, its branches spread wide in welcome. And beneath it, exactly as Marcus had known they would be, sat his real friends. 23 students who'd found refuge under those branches, who'd built something genuine in a place that usually rewarded performance over authenticity. Zara was there. Of course she was there. She sat with her back against the trunk, a book open in her lap, but she wasn't reading. She was staring at nothing, her expression distant and heartbroken. When Marcus appeared, her head snapped up. Their eyes met across the space between them. For a moment, nobody moved. The entire group had gone silent, all eyes on Marcus and Zara, waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus walked toward the tree, toward Zara, toward the life he'd built over the past 3 months that his parents had tried to destroy. "Can I sit?" he asked. His voice was quiet, uncertain in a way the old Marcus never would have been. Zara looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her expression guarded. "Marcus, we talked about this. We decided—" "You decided," Marcus interrupted gently. "You made a choice for both of us because you thought you were protecting me. But Zara, I don't need protection. I need you." "Your parents," she started. "Are wrong," Marcus said firmly. He set his tray down and sat beside her, not quite touching but close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her body. "They're wrong about what matters. They're wrong about you. And they're wrong if they think money is more important than the first real thing I've ever had in my life." Around them, their friends were watching with barely concealed interest. Tyler was grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Sarah had tears in her eyes. Maya looked like she was already composing a poem about this moment. "But your college fund," Zara said. Her voice cracked on the words. "Your future. Marcus, I can't let you throw that away from me. I won't." "Then don't let me throw it away," Marcus said. He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "Help me build a different future. One where I earn my own way instead of riding on my parents' money. One where I actually work for what I have instead of just inheriting it. Zara, you've taught me so much over the past 3 months. Teach me how to do this. Teach me how to be independent." "Do you have any idea how hard that is?" Zara asked. Tears were falling now, streaming down her face. "Do you know what it's like to worry about money constantly? To watch your mother work double shifts just to keep the lights on? To know that one emergency could destroy everything?" "No," Marcus admitted. "I don't know. But I want to learn. I want to understand your life instead of just observing it from the outside. And maybe I'll fail. Maybe I'll realize I can't do it without my parents' money. But Zara, I'd rather try and fail with you than succeed without you." "That's not rational," Zara said. But she was squeezing his hand now, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a spinning world. "Neither is love," Marcus said, echoing the words she'd said to him weeks ago. "Love is completely irrational, and I'm okay with that. Are you?" Zara looked at him, really looked at him, searching his face for something. Certainty maybe, or courage, or just the evidence that he meant what he was saying, that this wasn't some romantic gesture he'd regret when reality set in. Whatever she was looking for, she must have found it, because she leaned forward and kissed him, soft and desperate, and full of all the fear and hope and love that neither of them knew how to put into words. The oak tree community erupted in cheers. Tyler whooped so loud birds scattered from the branches above. Sarah was definitely crying now, and Maya had pulled out her notebook and was frantically scribbling. Even Thomas, who usually stayed focused on his laptop, was grinning and clapping. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying and smiling at the same time. "You're insane," Zara said. "This is completely insane." "I know," Marcus agreed. "But I'm done making decisions based on fear. I'm done letting other people control my life. My parents want me to choose between you and money? Fine. I choose you. I choose us. And I choose to figure out the rest as it comes." "Your parents are going to cut you off," Zara said. "They're going to follow through on their threat." "Probably," Marcus admitted. "And that's going to be terrifying and difficult and probably the hardest thing I've ever done. But you know what scares me more? Living my whole life as someone I'm not. Becoming my parents. Waking up at 45 in a loveless marriage, traveling constantly to avoid going home, using money as a substitute for actual human connection. That scares me more than being poor." Tyler moved closer, sitting down on Marcus's other side. "For what it's worth, dude, I think you're making the right choice, and you're not going to do this alone. We've all got your back." Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "My parents both work at the university. I can ask them about scholarship opportunities. There are tons of programs for students who demonstrate financial need. And I can help you learn to code," Thomas offered. "It's a skill that pays well, and you can do freelance work even while you're in school." "I know someone who runs a tutoring center," Maya added. "They're always looking for smart high school students to tutor younger kids. The pay is decent." One by one, the students under the oak tree started offering help. Resources, connections, ideas for how Marcus could build a future that didn't depend on his parents' money. And Marcus realized something that made his chest feel too small for his heart. This was what real wealth looked like. Not bank accounts or trust funds or stock portfolios. Real wealth was people who cared about you enough to help you succeed. Real wealth was community and connection, and 23 students willing to share what they had because they believed in something bigger than themselves. "Thank you," Marcus said. His voice was thick with emotion. "All of you. Thank you." "Don't thank us yet," Tyler joked. "Wait until you've actually survived on ramen noodles for a month straight. Then decide if you're grateful." Everyone laughed, and the tension broke. Lunch proceeded normally after that, or as normally as anything could proceed when you'd just chosen love over money and your entire future was a terrifying blank slate. But as Marcus sat there with Zara's head on his shoulder and his friends around him, he felt something he'd never felt in his parents' mansion, with all its marble countertops and expensive furniture. He felt home. The afternoon passed in a blur. Marcus went to his classes, took notes, participated in discussions, and tried to pretend his entire world hadn't just shifted on its axis. But word of what happened at lunch had spread through Westbridge Academy like wildfire. Marcus Kane had walked past Amanda Pierce's table. Marcus Kane had chosen the oak tree over the throne. Marcus Kane had chosen love over money. The reactions were mixed. Some students looked at him with newfound respect, others with pity. Amanda and her friends glared at him with barely concealed rage, like he'd personally insulted them by not accepting their offer. The football players mostly ignored him, except for Jake Morrison, who gave him a subtle nod in the hallway that might have been respect, or might have been acknowledgement, or might have been both. After school, Marcus drove Zara home. They held hands the entire way, neither of them speaking much, both of them processing what came next. When they pulled up to her house, Zara turned to him with serious eyes. "Marcus, I need you to be really sure about this. Once you tell your parents you've made your choice, once they actually cut you off, there's no going back. You need to be absolutely certain this is what you want." "I'm certain," Marcus said. And he was. Terrified? Yes. Uncertain about the details? Absolutely. But certain about the fundamental choice? Completely. "Okay," Zara said. She kissed him again, slower this time, memorizing the moment. "Then we do this together. All of it. The scary parts and the hard parts and all the parts that don't have easy answers." "Together," Marcus agreed. He watched her walk to her door, watched her mother appear and pull her into a hug, watched the kind of easy affection that came from genuine love instead of social obligation. Then he drove home to his empty mansion and prepared for the hardest conversation of his life. His parents were still in Singapore. They wouldn't be back for 2 weeks. But Marcus couldn't wait 2 weeks. Couldn't spend 14 days in limbo, waiting for their return to deliver his decision. So he did what any 17-year-old in the 21st century would do. He called them. His father answered on the third ring. "Marcus, this is unexpected. Is something wrong?" "No," Marcus said. His voice was steady, stronger than he felt. Nothing's wrong. I'm calling because you asked me to make a decision, and I've made it. There was a pause. Marcus heard muffled voices in the background, his father telling someone he needed privacy. Then the sound of a door closing. I'm listening, his father said. I choose Zara, Marcus said simply. I choose love over money. I choose being myself over being who you want me to be. And I understand that means you're going to cut me off. I understand the consequences, but that's my choice. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long Marcus thought the call might have dropped. Then his father spoke, and his voice was colder than Marcus had ever heard it. You're making a catastrophic mistake. Maybe, Marcus agreed, but it's my mistake to make. And Dad, I've spent 17 years trying to earn your approval, trying to be the son you wanted, trying to make you proud. And I finally realized something. You're never going to be proud of me. Not really, because you don't know how to be proud of someone who isn't just a reflection of yourself. So I'm done trying. I'm done performing for an audience that will never appreciate the show. That's incredibly naive, his father said. You think you're being noble. You think you're choosing love and principles and all those beautiful ideals teenagers believe in? But Marcus, in 5 years when you're drowning in student debt, when you're working 3 jobs just to make rent, when that girl has left you for someone more successful, you're going to regret this. And we won't be there to bail you out. I know, Marcus said, and that's okay. I'd rather struggle and be real than coast and be empty. I've been empty for too long. Then you're on your own, his father said flatly. Effective immediately, you're removed from all family financial accounts. The house will be sold within the month. You'll need to find somewhere else to live. Your college fund is frozen. Your trust fund is dissolved. You're getting exactly what you asked for, Marcus. Independence. I hope it's everything you dreamed it would be. The line went dead. Marcus sat there holding his phone, staring at the blank screen, trying to process what had just happened. His father had actually done it, had actually cut him off. No more safety net. No more fallback plan. Just Marcus and whatever he could build for himself. His hands were shaking. His breathing was shallow. Panic was rising in his chest like floodwater. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Zara. How did it go? Marcus typed back, I'm officially poor and terrified and somehow weirdly excited. Her response came immediately. Come over. Mom's making dinner. We'll figure this out together. Marcus looked around his bedroom one last time. The expensive furniture, the designer clothes, the gaming setup that cost more than some people's cars. All of it bought with his parents' money. All of it part of a life that had never really been his. He grabbed his laptop, a change of clothes, and his school bag, left everything else behind. Then he drove to Zara's house, to the small, well-maintained home with wind chimes on the porch and actual love inside its walls. Zara met him at the door. Behind her, he could see her mother in the kitchen and Isaiah sitting at the dining table doing homework. A real family doing real family things. You okay? Zara asked. Not even a little bit, Marcus admitted, but I will be. She pulled him inside, into the warmth and chaos of a home that had never been perfect, but had always been real. And Marcus Kane, former king of Westbridge Academy, took his first real step into a future he'd have to build himself. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was absolutely, completely, perfectly right. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus learned what struggle actually meant. He crashed on Tyler's couch for 3 days while he figured out living arrangements. Tyler's parents, kind people who'd watched Marcus's transformation with quiet approval, offered him their guest room for a month while he got on his feet. It was charity, and accepting it burned with humiliation. But Marcus swallowed his pride and said thank you. He applied for 17 different scholarships, filled out financial aid forms until his fingers cramped, met with Principal Hendricks 3 times to discuss his options. She helped him craft essays about transformation and growth, about learning that wealth of character mattered more than wealth of bank accounts. Some of it felt manipulative, using his story of change to earn money. But Zara reminded him that honesty about growth wasn't manipulation. It was just truth. The house sold in 11 days. His parents worked fast when they wanted to make a point. Marcus was allowed to return exactly once to collect his belongings. He filled 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. Left behind the expensive gaming setup, the designer clothes, all the trappings of a life that had never fit right anyway. His mother wasn't there. His father sent his assistant to supervise. Marcus didn't even rate a personal goodbye. School became strange. Some students treated him like a cautionary tale, whispering when he passed about the boy who'd thrown away millions for a girl. Others treated him with newfound respect, like choosing love over money was the bravest thing they'd ever witnessed. Amanda Pierce ignored him completely, which was somehow worse than her usual cruelty. Being beneath her noticed stung more than being her target. But the Oak Tree community rallied. Sarah's parents connected Marcus with a scholarship fund for students, demonstrating financial need and academic improvement. His grades over the past 3 months, the transformation from coasting mediocrity to actual engagement, made him a compelling candidate. Thomas taught him basic coding, and Marcus discovered he actually enjoyed it, enjoyed building something from nothing using just logic and creativity. Maya helped him get a job at the tutoring center, working with middle school kids 3 afternoons a week. The pay was modest but steady, and Marcus discovered something surprising. He was good at teaching, good at explaining concepts, good at making kids feel capable instead of stupid, good at being patient in a way the old Marcus never could have managed. Zara's mother, once she understood the full situation, became an unexpected ally. She'd been skeptical of Marcus at first, protective of her daughter, worried he was just another rich boy playing at poverty before running back to comfort. But watching him actually work, actually struggle, actually commit to building a life without his parents' money, won her over. "You've got grit," she told him one evening when he was over for dinner, "a regular occurrence now. More than I expected. Your parents did you a favor, even if they didn't mean to. They gave you a chance to find out who you actually are." "I'm still figuring that out," Marcus admitted. "Most days, I have no idea what I'm doing." "That's called being human," she replied with a knowing smile. "Welcome to how the rest of us live." The scholarship responses started arriving 3 weeks after Marcus had been cut off. 4 rejections, then a partial offer from a state school, then another rejection. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon when Marcus was beginning to think he'd have to defer college for a year and work full-time, a thick envelope arrived at Tyler's house. Full-ride scholarship. The Morrison Chen Foundation for Academic Excellence and Character Development. Full tuition, room and board, and a stipend for books and living expenses. 4 years guaranteed. Renewable based on academic performance and community service. Marcus stared at the letter, reading it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Then he called Zara, his hands shaking so badly he almost dropped his phone. "I got in," he said when she answered. "Full scholarship, everything covered." Zara screamed so loud. Marcus had to hold the phone away from his ear. "I knew it. I knew you could do it. Marcus, I'm so proud of you." "It gets better," Marcus said, still not quite believing it himself. "The school is State University, the same one you're going to. We're going to be together." This time Zara's scream was even louder, and Marcus heard her mother in the background asking what was happening. Then Zara was talking rapid fire, telling her mother the news, and suddenly everyone was celebrating, and Marcus felt something warm bloom in his chest. This was what success actually felt like. Not domination or control or fear-based power. Real success. Earned success, the kind that came from working for something instead of just inheriting it. That weekend, Westbridge Academy held its senior award ceremony. Marcus hadn't expected to receive anything. Awards typically went to students with perfect grades and impressive extracurriculars, and parents who donated buildings. But Principal Hendricks had other ideas. "This year, we're introducing a new award," she announced from the podium in the packed auditorium. "The Transformation Award, given to a student who has demonstrated exceptional personal growth and positive impact on our school community." Marcus felt Zara squeeze his hand. He squeezed back, not understanding yet. This award goes to a young man who spent his first 3 years at Westbridge building power through fear, and his final year learning that real strength comes from vulnerability and authentic connection. A student who gave up everything comfortable to become someone genuine. Marcus Kane, please come to the stage. For a moment, Marcus couldn't move, couldn't process that his name had been called. Then Zara was pushing him gently, and Tyler was whooping beside him, and somehow Marcus was walking to the stage through a standing ovation. Not everyone was standing. Amanda and her friends remained seated, arms crossed. Some of the football players looked uncomfortable. But the Oak Tree community was on their feet, 23 students cheering like Marcus had just won an Olympic medal. Principal Hendricks handed him a plaque and a certificate. Then she leaned close and whispered, "You changed this school, Marcus. Made it safer for students to be themselves. That matters more than any test score." Marcus looked out at the audience at all the faces watching him, some friendly, some hostile, most just curious. And he realized he didn't need them all to approve. Didn't need universal acclaim, or fear-based respect, or any of the things the old Marcus had craved. He just needed the people under the oak tree. The people who saw him and chose to stay. "Thank you," Marcus said into the microphone. His voice echoed through the auditorium. 3 months ago, I was someone I'm not proud of. I used fear as currency and power as purpose. I hurt people because I didn't know how to connect with them. But then I met someone who refused to be controlled, someone who showed me that being real was scarier than being powerful but infinitely more valuable. He looked at Zara, sitting in the 3rd row with tears streaming down her face. "Zara Thompson walked into my life and said no when everyone else said yes. She saw through my performance to the scared boy underneath, and she taught me that real courage isn't dominating others. It's being vulnerable enough to let people see who you actually are. This award doesn't belong to just me. It belongs to everyone who's found refuge under our oak tree, everyone who's chosen authenticity over performance, everyone who's brave enough to be themselves in a place that usually rewards pretending. The applause was deafening. Marcus walked off stage and straight to Zara, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her while half of Westbridge Academy watched. Later that night, they sat under the oak tree one last time before graduation. Just the two of them, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. "You know what's funny?" Marcus said. "My parents thought cutting me off would destroy me, thought taking away their money would break me and force me to come crawling back. And instead," Zara prompted. "Instead, they freed me," Marcus said. "They accidentally gave me the greatest gift possible, the chance to build a life that's actually mine. The chance to discover I'm capable of more than I ever knew. The chance to learn that I can survive without them." "You're going to be okay," Zara said softly. "Better than okay. You're going to be extraordinary." "We're going to be extraordinary," Marcus corrected. "Together." Graduation came on a perfect June day, all sunshine and blue skies. Marcus walked across the stage to receive his diploma, wearing a borrowed cap and gown, no expensive designer suit underneath like most of his classmates. His parents' seats in the audience were empty. They hadn't called, hadn't sent a card, hadn't acknowledged his graduation in any way. But Tyler's parents were there, cheering when Marcus's name was called. Zara's mother was there with Isaiah, who held up a sign that said, "You're awesome, Marcus," in crayon. Principal Hendricks gave him a hug as she handed him his diploma, and the Oak Tree community, all 23 of them, stood and cheered like he'd just accomplished something world-changing. Maybe he had, not by being powerful or feared or rich, but by being brave enough to change, humble enough to admit when he was wrong, and strong enough to choose love when choosing money would have been easier. After the ceremony, as graduates threw their caps in the air and parents snapped photos and everyone celebrated endings and beginnings, Marcus found himself standing apart from the crowd, looking back at Westbridge Academy one last time. Jake Morrison approached him, slightly awkward, clearly uncomfortable with whatever he was about to say. "Hey," Jake said, "I just wanted to tell you that watching you this year made me reconsider some stuff, about how I treat people, about what actually matters. You didn't have to forgive me for being a jerk to you and Zara, but you did anyway. That was cool of you." "We're all learning," Marcus said. "Some of us just started later than others." Jake nodded, then stuck out his hand. Marcus shook it. It wasn't friendship, not quite, but it was peace. And sometimes, peace was enough. Zara appeared at Marcus's elbow, sliding her hand into his. "Ready to go?" "My mom's hosting a graduation party. Nothing fancy, just family and the Oak Tree crew." She made way too much food. Marcus looked at the girl who'd changed everything. The girl who'd said no when everyone else said yes. The girl who'd seen through his performance to the person underneath and decided that person was worth knowing. "Yeah," Marcus said, "I'm ready." They walked away from Westbridge Academy together toward a future neither of them could predict, but both of them were willing to build. Marcus had no trust fund, no family money, no safety net beyond his own capabilities and the people who chose to support him. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was real. 2 months later, Marcus moved into his dorm room at State University. It was small, shared with a roommate he'd never met, furnished with cheap furniture that wouldn't last more than a few years. It was perfect. Zara's dorm was across campus, but they met for lunch every day at a spot they'd claimed a tree, smaller than their oak tree at Westbridge, but similar enough to feel like home. Other students started gathering there too, outcasts and misfits and people who didn't quite fit anywhere else. It was happening again, that same magic they'd created at Westbridge. Community built on authenticity instead of hierarchy. Marcus's parents never called, never wrote, never acknowledged his existence beyond the legal paperwork officially removing him from their will. It hurt. Probably always would hurt. But the hurt got smaller every day as Marcus built a life filled with people who actually cared about him. He studied business and computer science, maintaining a 3.8 gigapascals while working part-time tutoring and freelancing code. Zara studied psychology and pre-med, dreaming of becoming a psychiatrist who actually understood what it meant to struggle. They studied together, ate together, built a future together one day at a time. Sometimes, late at night when Marcus couldn't sleep, he'd think about the boy he used to be. Marcus Kane, king of Westbridge Academy. The boy who controlled through fear, who measured worth in power, who'd never felt truly connected to another human being. That boy felt like a stranger now, someone Marcus had been but would never be again. 1 year after graduation, Marcus ran into Amanda Pierce at a coffee shop near campus. She was attending an Ivy League school 3 hours away, exactly as planned. She looked the same: perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect everything, but her eyes were tired in a way Marcus recognized. The exhaustion of constantly performing, constantly maintaining an image that didn't quite fit. "Marcus," she said, surprised. "I didn't know you went here." "Scholarship?" Marcus said simply. "Full ride." Something flickered across her face. Respect, maybe. Or envy. "That's actually impressive. I heard you and Zara are still together." "We are," Marcus confirmed. Amanda was quiet for a moment, staring into her expensive latte. Then she said something Marcus never expected. "I was wrong about her. About you. I thought you were making a mistake. Thought you'd regret choosing her over everything else. But you look happy. Actually happy. I don't think I've ever been actually happy." It was the most honest thing Amanda had ever said to him. "It's not too late," Marcus offered. "To stop performing. To figure out who you actually are underneath all the perfection." "Maybe," Amanda said. She smiled, and for the first time it looked genuine instead of calculated. "Maybe not." They said goodbye as acquaintances who'd once been enemies, and Marcus walked back to campus feeling like something had finally, completely closed. 5 years later, Marcus graduated with his MBA, having worked his way through business school with a combination of scholarships, teaching assistant positions, and freelance consulting. Zara graduated medical school the same year. They got married under an oak tree with their community around them, chosen family instead of blood family. Marcus's parents weren't invited. They wouldn't have come anyway. But Tyler was there, best man and best friend. Sarah was there with her veterinary degree and her brilliant smile. Thomas was there, having founded a successful startup. Maya was there, published poet and creative writing professor. The entire Oak Tree community, scattered across the country but reunited for this moment, all of them celebrating love and growth and the courage to choose authenticity. Marcus stood at the altar watching Zara walk toward him, and he thought about the boy he'd been 7 years ago, the boy who'd thrown a pencil on a new girl's desk and expected instant compliance. The boy who'd measured his worth in other people's fear. That boy had died the moment Zara said no. And from his ashes, someone real had been born. Someone brave enough to be vulnerable, strong enough to admit weakness. Wealthy in ways that had nothing to do with money. Powerful in ways that had everything to do with love. "Ready?" Zara whispered when she reached him, her eyes bright with joy and mischief and all the beautiful chaos that came from building a life together. "Always," Marcus whispered back. And he was. Ready for marriage and career and whatever challenges came next. Ready to keep growing, keep changing, keep choosing love over fear and authenticity over performance. Because Marcus Kane had finally learned the most important lesson of all. Real power wasn't about controlling others. It was about controlling yourself, your choices, your values. Your willingness to be vulnerable and authentic, even when it was terrifying. The handsome bully who'd controlled everyone had met the girl who'd said no. And in saying no, she'd taught him yes. Yes to growth. Yes to change. Yes to love. Yes to a future built on genuine connection instead of manufactured power. Years later, when people asked Marcus what changed his life, he always gave the same answer: a pencil. A girl. And the courage to choose who he wanted to be instead of who he'd always been. That choice, terrifying and liberating and absolutely right, had made all the difference.